have a little bit of interaction to begin with. So this is a QR code. I'm not going to get any money from you. So please feel free to share. And the question here is, how do you usually identify your journal to publish a manuscript? So it's a word cloud. So as people get typing your results, it will be shown. And it is anonymous. Don't think that your name would be revealed. So it's trying to get your engagement, and so that we know what stage we are, and from there we can take it on. Please, let's have about a minute. Kindly share this QR code. It will take you to a page called a Slido, and you can type your answer. PubMed, great. So this is how the interface comes, okay? So the question I would repeat, how do you usually identify your journal to publish your manuscript? Okay, so current Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, so we also be a little tech savvy so that we can get their engagement. So publisher website, Google Scholar, Scopus, from peers and staff, very valid point. Scopus, UGC, so these are some of the results that are coming in. And we can still see some 4 more participants are typing. We'll hold for about 5-10 more seconds, and then we'll proceed. Alright, so as the text of a particular word increases, that means many people are typing the same. So we still believe a lot more people are typing as PubMed. I would reiterate my question. So how do you usually identify your journal to publish your manuscript? So that means you have drafted your manuscript, okay, it's ready. So many people will give their own suggestions, okay, say you have one standard journals, okay, every specialty might have a 3 or 4 standard journals, but we know the difficulty in cracking through. But nevertheless, so now we have QS ranking coming up where people focus on dental domains, but with NIRF ranking you need the volume of publication being in Scopus. So somehow we have to have the manuscript, get it published to one of the journals, okay. So great. So we got a beautiful word cloud here. So starting from based on the scope of your research, excellent response. CHRRM, I don't know what that is, sorry. Embase, AIM, Scopus, UGC, from peer staff, search in Google, researcher. Okay, whatever is existing, books and novels, okay. Google Scholar, Scopus, literature, niche area, and publisher website, so journal finder, renowned database. So this is the current understanding, and it almost summarizes what I'm going to touch about for next 20 to 30 minutes. So with this, let's get started. So the learning objective of today's session is going to be discussing about the importance of choosing the suitable journal for publishing your research findings. Understand the step-by-step process using various types. I will take you through the journal finder as well as journal seeker, and also with current context, how to make your research that you have published to be more addressable to the society. Okay, so currently if it is being published only in a journal, okay, we can have academicians, we can have postgraduates or undergraduate students hardly looking into your paper. But is this the need? So like my previous presenter have emphasized, ultimately we need to bridge the gap between the end users and the researchers. So that's why we publish in the first place. So how to make that possible, and how this alt metrics is kind to give you a metric so that it will show you the amount of engagement that your research will have in publics. Okay, so now especially for the newbies or the beginners or the postgraduates here, imagine now you have completed your research. So you have spent X amount of money, you have formulated a hypothesis, you have tested the hypothesis, and whereby you have conducted a research and you got a result, right? And you have organized your thoughts and made it into a proposal with adequate scientific rigor. So what next? Okay, so definitely, do you think with that paper that you have created or the manuscript that you have created, do you want it to rest in your laptop forever, or you want it to publish? Agree? So if not, okay, if not, it's just like dropping your iPhone or the most expensive phone into a drain and waiting it to sink, all by itself. So the answer is to publish. Now if the response is to publish, okay, where do I publish? Now why this topic is relevant now is, Now everybody gives some kind of a deadline, alright? In fact, DCA, UGC, for that matter, for rankings, everybody has some form of a deadline that's to be met, you know. So you have to publish X number of topics in a given year, alright? So when the pressure increases, the chances of making mistake, would it increase or decrease? When you are in an unstable mind, when you are forced to do something, would the chance of making a mistake, would it increase or decrease? Agree? Everybody agree it would increase? So it is always good to publish, okay? It is always good to publish. But the moment you publish, okay, you are exposing your identity in terms of your identity, your name, as well as your affiliation to the public forum, and thereby leaving a permanent carbon footprint in the present day information technology. Okay? So once you publish it, it is there forever unless it is being retracted by you or by the publisher. Okay? So make sure the scientific rigor that you are testing and you are publishing is appropriate. So this is rule number 1, which is being taken care by most of the universities and colleges. Nobody will give a false result. But what can be false is your fraudulent journal that you are publishing. Okay? Because this UGC norm is always saying, so if you are publishing or a fake results or a fabricated drafts, so your promotion and everything will be in query. And DCA regulation mandatorily says there is one publication that has to be completed at the end of your post graduation. So always plan ahead. You have 3 years, you know. So try to plan and sequentially do it, not everything at the last. Because if you go at the last minute, you will always seek in search of a shortcut. Okay, shortcut in the sense where they are offering or where they are accepting a journal in a relatively shortest period of time. Say you might have an indication saying that your manuscript that has been submitted will be reviewed, or initial decision will be given in 2 days and it will be published in 2 weeks. All right. So if a journal is actually, the turnover rate is so fast, you know, they are actually doing a pretty great job. But we should be aware whether it is a predatory journal or a clone journal. So what do I mean by a predatory or a clone journal? So these two terms, we might think these are same, but they are not. So predatory journals where so now for publishers as well as reviewer, you have something called as COPE guidelines. COPE guidelines is code of ethics for publishers. Alright. So just like how we have ethics to be followed for conducting a research, we have publication ethics. So when a journal is not following anything called as an ICMJE rules, or they do not expect the your code, they don't meet the COPE guidelines, they will bypass many process by overgoing or underdoing a process called as peer review. So if the peer review doesn't take place, or if it doesn't happen properly, the scientific rigor is not being validated by more than 1 or 2 reviewer. So whatever you say would be getting published into the field, it will go into the journal. So these are predatory. So they just expect something called as an article processing charge, and the moment you transfer it, it will be published. So it is not undergoing a process called as a peer review. So this in long term, if could come as blacklisting of the author or blacklisting of the university, and then it will refer back to you why it got blacklisted. So once it is blacklisted, it's like 5 years it cannot be publishing in similar kind of journals. Okay, so that is very, very devastating for the academic career. Next is clone journal. So it is not a mistake of yours, but just because a fabrication of the database, the moment what we do, we'll put, so many people have mentioned as Google search, you know. So you put one journal name, you know, it will take you to the database, but you do not verify whether it is an actual database of the journal or not. What you will usually do, we'll click the first or the second one that pops up first, right? Or do we meticulously search? The idea here is to meticulously search. We'll take you through how it can be done. But if you unknowingly click a database and somehow it becomes a fraudulent database, you will end up in publishing your manuscript with so-called fake names of the journal alone, but it's not the actual journal. So how you will find out? You might be thinking it is a Scopus index journal, but after 6 months, 3 months, you know, you will be checking your Scopus database whether your article has come up or not, but ultimately it will never reach because it is a cloned journal. So clone journal means it has same name or similar name, but it is not linked to the Scopus or the Web of Science database that the journal homepage falsely claims so. Okay, so I'm not threatening you, or I'm not scaring you, but this has happened. So the emphasis here is to prevent the same before having any consequences. So in your academic career, so this is the next Slido activity. In your academic career, have you come across any predatory or cloned journals? So this is just an yes or no. So let's not be very specific or critical about which journal and all. So have you come across anything? Okay, so we have one participant still typing. So few yes, few no's. Okay, so yes and no are balancing out. Great. So kindly we can know that at least few of you are aware of something called as predatory and clone journal. If you are aware, it is very good. Okay. So those who are not aware, this probably next 20 minutes is to emphasize how to prevent in falling into their traps. Alright. So thank you. We'll move on to the next activity. So in the year, so 2014, okay, so that's when the person called it's called the bail list, so which came up, and when the moment this list came out, there were a lot of wrath thrown by the authors as well as the publishers for the person who has published this blog called as bail list. So how can you say my journal is predatory, but he has followed his own metrics, but currently this is being retracted. But nevertheless, when the citation went, this was in 2022, so they have provided a list of falsely claiming DOAJ journals. Okay, so what do I mean by this is, so the journal website, the moment you type in a journal name, it takes place to the home page of the particular journal. They will initially claim it is Scopus. Okay, so everybody wants Scopus. Why do we want Scopus? Any idea? Any idea why suddenly, all of a sudden, initially it was all PubMed for DSA, but now recently for past 2 years, 3 years, we are speaking about Scopus. Any idea? What is the inner hitch? NIRF. Okay. So the simple sense is, if you publish one article in Scopus Index Journal, the multiplicative factor is 0.5. If you publish one article in Web of Science, its multiplicative factor is 0.3. And if you publish only in PubMed Index Journal, it becomes multiplicative factor 0.1. Okay, so if you are publishing in a Scopus Index, it's equivalent to 5 articles being published in a PubMed Index. So everybody is starting moving towards Scopus. So everybody moves towards Scopus, but we also have to know Scopus is a private database. It is maintained by Elsevier. It's not a government or some kind of a organizational database. But nevertheless, that is being followed. So we are also following for NIRF ranking. So check the logos mentioned in journal website, okay, and please do verify going to the source database like a Scopus or a Web of Science. Check if this journal that is listed as Scopus is still there in Scopus indexing or not, because there can be error. They can be indexed in Scopus for till 2020 or 21 or 22, but in the recent years, say 23, 24, they would have lost their indexing. Okay. So once I'm giving a demo, I'll take you through the process, but make sure they are currently indexed. Okay, only then you publish your article in that particular index. Check for affiliations. Usually there will be affiliations. A particular journal will be affiliated to some kind of an organization, okay, and or a college or a university. So next is check if there is a multidisciplinary journal. Please, it is not a very safe area to publish. Interdisciplinary is okay, but multidisciplinary means you have agriculture, you have health science, you have engineering, everything getting published in one journal, so the robustness or the reviewing process will not be very robust. So make sure you have your own concerns about a multidisciplinary journal. Check the editorial board, and just a thumb rule, if you have a proper well maintained journal, the editor's ID will not be a Gmail ID. This is a thumb rule. Okay. So if they say, okay, editor of so and so, some international name, and you are taken to an Indian page or any other page, you have your own concerns. And usually editor of a particular journal will not have a Gmail ID. That means there is some kind of a fraudulent process or predatory aspects in it. And most importantly, try to access the journal website through the indexing database. So you know that you're searching your journal for you to publish your manuscript. Make sure you link the journal through the Scopus database. So the chances of going into a wrong database is very, very minimal, because it is not only checked by you, it has been checked by Scopus and other companies who embed that particular link into the database. Okay, and definitely, if possible, check in with DOI.org, which is a digital object identifier, and it's a mission readable. So DOI should be matching. So if you have a DOI coming for a particular manuscript, go to DOI.org and see if your DOI is matching with your particular manuscript, whether it is aligned or not. So next activity. So speaking about journal metrics. Okay, I am not here to speak about all the metrics. Okay, I am going to touch about only most important metrics, which are two. Okay, so that for you can have a better understanding how the quality of your journal is. So can you name some journal metrics? Okay, great. So we have something called a schemago coming here. Anything else? Site score, great. Many people are mentioning about schemago. Reach and focus, okay. Impact factor, okay. Corresponding journal website, H index, great. So that means some of the metrics you know, alright. So the question here was journal metrics. So journal metrics is different from researchers metrics, okay. So you and me are a researcher, okay. So if somebody here to judge the quality of my work, that is called as researchers metrics, okay. The type of manuscript I am sending in for a journal and it is getting accepted, okay. How the journal has performed for the previous 1 year, 3 year or 2 year will be your journal metrics, okay. So if somebody has to validate the quality of the research, you know, so it is usually should be how effective the researcher is performing in a particular college, where your H index would be a much better predictor than your impact factor, because impact factor doesn't say about your manuscript alone. It says how that particular journal or the articles that has come in that particular journal have performed in the previous 2 year or previous 1 year, okay. So the concept is very different, but still now we have gone through a process of something called as QCI. You know, we go through NIRF, where they speak about cumulative impact factor. When the question is there, we somehow draft the metrics and we give the response, because we don't have a choice. So scientometrics is a science by itself, which tends to focus on the various types of metrics that has been evolved. So it has been broadly categorized into journal metrics as well as researchers metrics, okay. So when it comes to journal metrics, one thing that has been touched about very frequently is your Clarivate analytics or JCR. So JCR comes only once in a year, okay. It is as equivalent to how NIRF ranking comes. So JCR gives, it's like a ranking status for the journal, you know, and site score is by every month, okay. Every month how your journal has performed, so that varies, that is your site score. So two are two different domains, but are very well followed, okay. So JCR by your Clarivate analytics, and your Scopus, what it gives is your site score. So initially these things started with your Dr. Eugene Garfield, where he wanted to measure the impact of the research that you are performing, okay. Very good thought, okay. He didn't have any hidden agenda. So if you are having a research being published, okay, as a postgraduate I might think, okay, the moment I am done with publishing, that's all, that's the be all and end all of my research. But whether your research that you have presented or published is being cited by similar researchers, so that's how your citation gets increased. So that's how you are making your research that you have done as a living document, right. So the citation report, journal citation report shows most frequently cited journals. So say if I have an article that is being cited 20 times, okay, as compared to another article which has been cited once or twice. So that means what? Does it directly mean that once that is cited only once or 20 times is different, one is super, another is poor? No, you should also look at the time period when the article got published. So if you see such standard things like a gold standard article, anything that came like about 1980s or so they have 200 odd citations. That is because it's been time tested, it's been repeated for so many number of times, okay. So the year also would matter, and it will also give which is the most hottest journal in that particular field. medicine, they will always say NEJM, you know. So for dentistry, we have especially for perio, we have something called as Perodontology 2000, no, which has maximum citations. Why? Because it is review journal, review articles. It is not original works. So Perodontology 2000, though the impact factor is about 5, you know, it is getting so, it's because it's a review, because many people tend to cite it. Alright, as compared to JCP or Journal of Clinical Perodontology or Journal of Periodontal Research. Okay, so next, it's also the highest impact factor in the field and most published article, also the benchmarking criteria. So site score, as I already mentioned, is being provided by Scopus, and it changes on a monthly basis. Okay, it is not a yearly affair, it changes on a monthly basis. So just how this is being calculated, okay, we'll have a rough example. So this is how it's actually calculated. So impact factor will take into account how your journal is performing for the previous 2 years. So if I'm calculating for 2025, it takes into account 24 and 23. Say for example, we have 100 articles that is being published in these 2 years, 50-50 each year. Okay, so that becomes your denominator. Alright, and last 2 years, how many citations you have received? Okay, just for easy sake, I'll say it as 200 citations in last 2 years. So 200 divided by 100 will be how much? 200 divided by 100 will be 2. So that will be your impact factor. So when somebody says impact factor is 2, this is how they are arriving. So total number of citation divided by number of citable material they have published in previous 2 years. So when it becomes site score, it is for 3 years. Okay, and it's a monthly affair. So every month it tends to change. So we also have had people who have mentioned about Schemago. So what is the Schemago? Schemago is actually a sideline or a sister concern of Scopus. So where it gives some kind of a journal ranking. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. It is nothing but you have 100 percentile. You divide it into 4. So 0 to 25, 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100. So if you are coming in the top 25, that is your 76 to 100th percentile, your journal will be Q1. If it belongs to say 51 to 75, it becomes Q2, and subsequently your Q3 and Q4. So the quality of journals that you are publishing will be referred this way. So whether you are publishing in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, this is the meaning. Okay, so these are all the journal metrics. So how you are publishing, where you are publishing, and what is the quality of the journal that you are publishing. Okay, so now going on to little individual perspective. So what is your research metrics? So we have different indexes. So we have H index, I10 index. I10 index, the algorithm is slightly different because it is given by Google Scholar. But what is being tested or what is being validated across for researcher is your H index. So you can look at your own H index in 2 different places. One is your Google Scholar and second one is your ResearchGate. Okay, if you have an account. So H stands for Hirsch. Okay, so called as an Hirsch index or Hirsch number. So it is like the number of top cited articles that you have received over a period of time. Okay, so it takes into account, so it's a author level metrics. So it says about the top 4 papers. Okay, say top 4 papers you have around 20 odd publications. Okay, 20 citations. So then your H index will be so much. All right. So now we'll take you through a small demo on how to access or how to utilize the various types of journal finders. I'll just pause with my presentation before I go into my next segment on altimetrics. So this is the abstract. Okay, everybody writes a manuscript along with the abstract, which is about 150 to 250 odd words. So this is the abstract what we have for our publication. I'm just selecting my abstract. So we have the different types of databases. So say I'll start from the beginning. So this is called as Elsevier's Journal Finder. Okay, Elsevier Journal Finder. So as far as dentistry is concerned, so you have 3 or 4 major publication house. So one is going to be your Elsevier, second is going to be Springer, and third is going to be your Wiley. Okay, and next one is your database. Scopus as well as Web of Sciences are database. Okay, so moving on to the various publishers house. So I'm going to Elsevier's Journal Finder, and I have something called as Match My Abstract. okay, or search by keywords or scope. Match my abstract is relatively better because you have given a concise information of what your research is going to speak about, and then you press find journals. Okay, so what will happen when you are just going with your faculty or your peers where they have published? They tend to give very limited resource where they have published. Okay, but this is a broader perspective, so you are taking into abstract and you are just pasting it here, and it gives you the list of journals which have suitable match. Okay, so you can also see about more about this journal, and so can you see this? Visit the journal page. So this is what I am telling. From this, if you go to the journal page, it is always better rather than typing in Google as microbial pathogenesis. So the moment you click this, it will take you to your journal homepage. Okay, and from here you can start your submission. So apart from this, there are various other factors that plays. Okay, certain things are open access, and subscribe. Okay, so open access, not especially with the postgraduate research or a small scale research that is coming in, will not be able to shell out about 2,500 or 3,000 odd US dollars just for publishing one paper. No, and not many are funded research which can afford so much of funding. Say that comes about almost 1.5 to 2.5 lakhs just for a paper. So if the wealth of your funding is so much, yes, you can afford to do that. But nevertheless, for the most of the journals, we'll go for dual access, say gold access, open access as well as subscribe. So let's just give a very briefing about what subscribed is. You have a lockout period, something called as an embargo period for 12 months. Meaning for the first 12 months of the embargo period, you're not supposed to share your manuscript in your public domain. The moment you cross that embargo period, you are free to share your manuscript in your social medias or public domain. Why that is important, I'll come to you when I'm speaking about the altmetrics. Okay, so this is one way of searching or finding out the journals which is suitable. Likewise, you also have for your Springer. Okay, so you can go to the Springer's journal seeker, and the moment you put, so it can show the various types of journals that you can see. Okay, so I can go for find journal. Okay, so it gives me with relevance. So these dots refers to what type of journals that has been already published and how things are there. So now here you have a rough idea, say about 20 journals you have, and you can filter it to what domain you want. Say you want to target only dental, you can choose that. If you are open for a little broader perspective, say you have an interdisciplinary work, some microbiology or something, yes. So the work that I am putting is kindly it's about microbiology and antimicrobial properties. So that's why you are able to see most of the microbiology related work as well. So if the full dots are there, so that means the relevance is high, the chance of acceptance is relatively better. And as the number of dots decreases, so the relevance to that particular journal would be very minimal. Alright. And you can also search in something called as a Web of Science. So Web of Science requires a login alone. It's a free login. So likewise you can type your title and abstract and search in a Web of Science index journals. Okay. So moving back to my presentation. So with this I complete my first two learning objectives. First, we are kind of familiarized with journal metrics. Yes or no? Yes? Okay, we know what is the difference between journal metrics and researcher metrics, right? And what are the ways to navigate through, and how, if you have a manuscript ready, how to search the various types of database and how to avoid going into a fraudulent database. Agreed? So you have to go to the specific publishers and from there click the journal homepage so that you will not land in a wrong area. Okay, so journey of a manuscript submission. So I'm sure everybody will be going through this or already going into this. So alignment of a manuscript with the scope of the selected journal. So that is very critical. So if you have a manuscript, it doesn't mean that it goes and gets accepted in any journal. So that means again it's predatory. If you send anything and they accept, so you have to check the validity of the journal. Okay, so it should be aligned with the scope of the journals. So author guidelines, make sure that you are taking a printout of it and reading it once or twice so that we don't make any mistake. Check word character limit, and please